Hi, I'm Simon Bridges. It's great to have you back for another Auckland Business Chamber Weekly Business Insight webinar as part of our ongoing series, helping you to be better in your business. Today, it's fantastic to have Seren Wilson with us, who's the Director of Talent Solutions and spent the best part of the last 25 years supporting organisations to attract, select, and develop talent. Talent Solutions partners with organisations to build their early talent strategy, how to effectively engage with junior talent and incorporate graduates, interns, and cadets into their longer-term workforce plans. This session is going to explore the case for investing in early talent and share insights from the recent research Talent Solutions has conducted across the early talent industry and offer advice for organisations keen to capitalise on the benefits that junior hires can bring to their business. Seren, it's great to have you. I'm all ears. Actually, I've got, I hope they're not listening right this second, but I've got lots of junior talent hires around me, and they're
Great
great.
stuff.
But yeah, they involve, a bit more work at some levels up front. So yeah, really interested in your insights and hearing from you on this very topical, very important topic.
Amazing. Thank you. Let me just share my screen and brilliant. Well, thank you, Simon, for the warm introduction. Now, I wonder if, as a place to start, I'd encourage everyone watching the session just to have a think about the person or organisation that gave you your first professional job. And maybe that was straight out of school, maybe it was out of university. I can certainly recall mine, and it definitely created the launch pad for my career. And probably without it, I wouldn't be standing in front of you today. So I feel like intuitively we understand the importance of getting young people into job opportunities. And today I want to explore that a little bit further. So I want to start by looking at the case for investing in early talent, because I passionately believe that as a business owner within a business, you are impacting your ability to build the capability you need for your organisation and your industry, and we'll talk about New Zealand too, without creating opportunities for young people. And then I'll touch on a few considerations in terms of how to do it. And I'm going to be referencing data today from our recently released Student Pulse report, which surveys thousands of students around the country, and we share that data back with employers to help them to really narrow down their focus and be more effective at how they engage with early talent. So I thought we'd start with some of the barriers, and you touched on that a little bit, Simon, at the beginning, in terms of some of the perceived and real barriers that organisations can bring to mind when they're thinking about engaging with early talent. And a lot of the work that we do with organisations is to overcome these barriers. And so my point here would be, if you are thinking about engaging with early talent, do talk to industry and program experts, get the right advice to get yourself started, because you're likely to find that the barriers you anticipate are very easily overcome. And so let's turn to the for case for investing in early talent. Your junior talent, I'm going to refer to them as Gen Zs. These are the generation that tend to start from the late teens into the late 20s. They're generally the age range of the early talent that organisations are engaging with. They've grown up as digital natives. They're sometimes called screenagers. They're often referred to as the original .com kids. And in the rapidly changing world of AI, and considering the important role that technology plays in our lives, in our jobs, in our businesses, engaging young people who are not afraid of technology, are quick to embrace it, are fast adopters of new skills, can really give you an important competitive edge. The second point on there is around building a talent pipeline. And like all OECD countries, New Zealand has an aging population. The diversity of our nation is going to shift immensely over the next 20 years, and everything points to increased competition for talent. So I challenge you to think about the skills that you need today. And we often do this exercise with clients where we'll go in and talk to visionaries, the senior leadership teams, key stakeholders to understand what does good look like today and what will good need to look like tomorrow to ensure that you're a step ahead of what talent you need to be bringing through your organisation. And young people can play a key part in that equation. My third point is so important. I've done another slide on it because I think it's a really important one to think about for every business at any size. You know, we're an SME too. New Zealand is the land of SMEs. And that means we have to be so conscious and strategic with maximising the capability of our teams. And if we break this down to dollars and cents, it is inefficient and expensive to have an experienced employee doing work that could be undertaken by a graduate. Now, it doesn't maximise that experienced hire's capability, and I'm talking about the type of work that doesn't rely on that person's experience to deliver it. I'm talking about the sort of work that can be templated and built into a process, and that ideally can also be used as a training and development opportunity for your graduate hire. And so I'd encourage everyone watching this session to spend some time thinking about whether they've got that dialed up properly. Have you done enough planning within terms of the capability of your team and the sort of work that your teams are doing to ensure that you're maximising and right-sizing the sort of work that they're undertaking? And if we come back to the last few points, they're pretty self-explanatory. Enhancing your employer brand, being out on campus, out in the market. I worked for L'Oreal for 10 years when I was out building grad programs, largely overseas in the UK and Australia. That did double duty. When I was out talking about L'Oreal as a business, I was also talking to potential consumers. If you have a consumer brand, you'll get the double benefit going out to market as well. Agility and adaptability. You know, Gen Zs are known for their openness to learning. And, you know, coming back to that workforce planning piece, which is often the sort of stuff that SMEs can struggle to spend the time to step back and do, but critical if you're going to capitalise on, as I said, right-sizing the sort of work that your teams are doing. And we spend a lot of time with clients talking about that too. And now you might be thinking, this is all wonderful, Seren, in theory, but if you hadn't noticed, things are a little bit tough at the moment. And, you know, in the current climate, it can feel like a big ask to say, let's talk about investing in early talent. So let's talk about the current economic climate and the way it's impacting on opportunities for young people. And I'm not going to go through the bullet points on this slide. So I'm sure you've had so many conversations on this topic, and you would have heard that phrase that's been coined, survive to 25. Let's just get through to the end of the year. But you know, what are the implications of all of this for our young people? And students are really dialed in to the current economic climate. They understand when the economy is weak, graduate opportunities decrease and competition for roles increase. And as a result of that, they make some more applications. And I'll touch on the implications for you as a business owner or someone recruiting talent in a moment. But young people are hugely concerned about their job prospects post their studies. We actually put a press release out a couple of weeks ago because this was such a major shift. When we looked back, when we first asked this question in 2017 to now, we currently have a cohort of students at university who are the most concerned, more concerned than ever about their job prospects when they finish. And that's not good news for us, and I'll touch on the reasons why in a moment. But certainly when students are concerned, and you'll see of those that are concerned, the things that they're concerned about on this slide, but when they're concerned, as I say, they tend to make more applications. Now that's a challenge for you as an employer. So when you see a great candidate, you really need to work on the assumption that that candidate is talking to someone else as well. You know, when times are tough, graduate roles start to reduce, students will embark on spray and pray activity. Just over half of our respondents in our survey were making 7 to 11 or more applications. So speed of process is critical. This is not the time when you find a good candidate to spend a week thinking about when you're going to slot them in for a job interview. You really need to be moving fast if you want to get good talent out of the market. And we talk to our clients about this a lot. And the other thing is not, so we want speed, but we also want engagement. So if you go into your recruitment process expecting that your good candidates are going to be talking to someone else as well, you need to be dialing up the engagement throughout your process. The way you're communicating to your candidates at each stage of your process is critical for you to ensure that you get the best talent out of the market. So the last point I wanted to touch on in terms of student response to the current climate is plans to work overseas. And we have had another big shift in terms of student behaviour. Almost one half of respondents from our survey are looking for graduate jobs overseas as well as in New Zealand, straight out of uni. And that's not good news for us. We already know that, as Kiwis, I went overseas. Lots of you watching this will have spent some time doing your OE overseas. It's a rite of passage for many Kiwis, and hopefully, like a lot of you watching it, you're here because you've come back and you've brought those skills with you. But we don't want to be losing that talent early. We don't want to be losing them off the bat. So, my next slide is really my critical ask for you, for your industry. We have to be investing in young people, because if graduates don't see opportunities in New Zealand, they will find them elsewhere. And as a small country, we cannot afford that brain drain and that loss of critical capability and competitive advantage. So that's for you, that's for Auckland Inc., that's for New Zealand Inc. We need to provide opportunities for our young people. Now, I've talked about young people. Who am I talking about when I talk about the tertiary student population? I find this quite interesting. I hope you do too, in terms of what is the size of this market that with this talent pool that we're fishing in. So we've got approximately 41,000 domestic graduates each year. Sounds a lot, doesn't it? 41,000. Why am I struggling to find a couple for my business? But when you start breaking it down into individual study areas like IT, engineering, the numbers get smaller very quickly. And on the other side, you'll see that we tend to have more females coming out of university than males. And that skew shifts very rapidly as well, depending on what you're recruiting for. So, for example, in IT, only 21% of students identify as female. In engineering, it's about 20%. Conversely, if you're recruiting in law and you're keen to have a balanced gender mix in your applicant pool, well, 64% of law students identify as female. So your challenge of having a balanced intake of gender within those areas is obviously a different challenge to if you're recruiting in engineering and IT. International student numbers are slowly recovering post-COVID. They're a critical part of the mix in terms of investment in our education system at a tertiary level. They've been slowly rising, and our Māori and Pacific student numbers have been slowly increasing as well. There'll be some, many of you on the call who have a focus on increasing diversity in terms of ethnicity as well. So I thought that was a useful snapshot. And then you're thinking, okay, I'm on board, Seren. I understand why I need to invest in early talent. I can see the size of my market. Where do I go out to find this talent? Well, this is what students are telling us that they're using in terms of job hunting tools. So there are two main job boards in the New Zealand market for early talent. One is Prospal and the other one is Grad Connection New Zealand. Grad Connection New Zealand just entered the market around about March of this year. So you'll see Prospal, Seek, LinkedIn. The graph on the left, just to give you some context, were all of the ways that students find out about jobs. The graph on the right is the specific channels they found most effective. So this can be useful when you're thinking about where do you advertise, where do you go out to market. These are the sorts of places that students are coming across to find out who they want to apply for. And we've talked a lot, I've talked about graduates a lot, but I want to spend a moment talking about interns because for a couple of reasons. First up, 2/3 of our student population that responded to our survey had undertaken or intend to undertake an internship. Now, I've referenced another piece of research, which is the New Zealand Association of Graduate Employer Survey. In that survey, 88% of graduates who are in a job had relevant work experience, had undertaken an internship prior to starting. Net, what that all boils down to is that internships are a really effective way for you and cost-effective way for you to get access to talent before they're thinking about graduate opportunities. And there are many models of student engagement that you can do. There's co-op placements that you can do through the university directly. There's winter internships now. I know a lot of businesses will come back to me when I'm talking about summer internships to say, look, most of my business want to be on holiday in summer. It's not the ideal time for me to have a whole bunch of young people come into the business. Winter internships can be a great way to get around that. And we're also doing a lot of virtual internships. So these are internships that give you access to student talent without physically having them in your organisation. So lots of great ways to attack this, knowing this insight, knowing that this could give you a critical edge. And I'd encourage you to reach out if you want to have a chat about how you might get this working for you a little bit further. So quick recap. Hopefully I've convinced you that you need to be investing in early talent. You know where you need to advertise. You're thinking about undertaking an internship program. And now your students who have decided that they want to come and work for you or are thinking about it, come across your website or your job ad. What is the information that they are using to inform whether they hit apply now? So this is a great slide to pause on and take the time to audit your website or your job advertisement. This is the information students want to know before they hit apply. What job will I be doing for you? Where will I be doing it? What are you going to pay me? And what is the training and development on offer? Now, in most job ads, you'll get a sense of the role description, generally. It could be worth thinking about whether you've laid that out in plain English, and generally the student will know what the location is. Salary is not always advertised, but a lot of organisations forget about sharing the training and development. They forget about sharing the company culture. What's it going to be like working for you? And what's the broader plan? What are your thoughts in terms of how you're going to develop this individual in terms of their career? Because chances are you've thought about it. You know ideally where this person will end up after a couple of years of training, but often we've not taken the time to communicate that. And these are critical things that students want to know when they're considering whether they'll apply to you or not. So a really good exercise to do when you're creating your job ad, when you're thinking about what's on your website to attract students. And, interestingly, these are not just the things that appeal to students, are they? They're things that appeal to most of us when we're considering who we want to work for. So this will have benefits for your experienced hire recruitment as well. The next question I get asked all the time is generative AI. Are candidates using it? And the short answer is yes. When you're setting up your recruitment process, work on the basis that your candidates are using generative AI tools, it's ChatGPT, etc., to apply, whether that's creating a cover letter, whether it's creating their CV. ChatGPT does an awesome job of creating CVs and cover letters. So why that's important for you to realise is that when you're reading that cover letter, if in the past you've really used that cover letter as a way of ascertaining that individual's ability to communicate effectively in writing, you can't rely on that anymore. Now, there's a caveat to that. You can, if in your business you have embraced AI and your team are using AI regularly, you might be very happy that they're taking the initiative to use AI in their application process. But I think it's important to decide on where you sit in terms of what your business is doing in terms of AI. Are you open to candidates utilising AI And what are you going to do to make sure you're effectively still screening and evaluating the right fit for your organisation, considering, the only line on this graph that's gone down is I don't use ChatGPT. I've summed up generative AI as ChatGPT. I don't use it. The rest are all going up. I'm using it for my cover letter. I'm using it for my CV. So you need, as an employer, to be working on the basis that your candidates are using AI and decide on where you sit in terms of their use of it, whether you want to encourage it or not, and how you're going to design your selection process knowing that AI is in use. When a candidate has multiple offers, and I shared with you earlier the fact that we need to be working on the premise that students are applying for more jobs, therefore, it is very likely when they receive your job offer, they've got another one as well in front of them. When they put those job offers down in front of them, number one, they look at, well, who's going to pay me more? I think that makes sense. Intuitively, we'd probably do the same thing. But you'll see again that career progression, training and development, and reputation of employer are also in that top 5. So I'd encourage you to think about what's in your offer pack. If you've got a stock standard letter that says, congratulations, excited to have you on board, here's your job role, this is what you're going to be paid, and here's a summary of your benefits, that's not pushing all the buttons that we need to be pushing to get someone excited about your job role. So do think about how you're packaging up your offer. If you're not excited by it, then chances are your candidate's not either. So think about how you're communicating things like career progression. We're excited to put you on this career training pathway when this is what you'll develop into over the next 18 months. That's compelling. So are you communicating that effectively is my question or provocation for you. And on the topic of salary, we're often asked here, what should I be paying our graduates? In New Zealand, we're really not helped by the Aussie salaries that have been skyrocketing over the past 5 years or so. The Australian average graduate salary is now sitting at approximately 83.5K. So I see you shaking your head. It's a big number. Look, our average graduate salary is certainly nowhere near that. It sits high 50s to around about the 60K mark. But there's a lot of variance. So engineering, IT graduate roles are sit between 60 and 70. And some of the more commerce type roles, general marketing roles, sit closer to that high 50s to 60, but 60 is our average here. But you can see immediately that we've got some challenges with those sorts of salaries offered over the ditch, and we need to be cognizant of that. And it comes back to my point about the fact we need to have opportunities for young people to keep them on shore. How do students want to work? This is a hot topic for a lot of businesses. Post-COVID, we've been given the gift, if you want to call it that, of hybrid working. And a lot of organisations have continued to have some form of hybrid working arrangement for their teams. And I think there's an ongoing debate about what's the optimal contact time for staff to be in their office versus working from home. And for young people, post-COVID, I'm often hearing that there's this expectation that young people will want to be working remotely more. In actual fact, you'll see from this that almost a third of graduates don't want to be working remotely. They'd actually prefer to be on site full time. They understand that they need contact time with mentors and managers to learn and grow. And some of that is just incidental conversations that they're party to when they're in an office environment versus not. If you are hybrid, you really need to be thinking about how you intentionally train and develop your young people, because they're not necessarily tripping over that incidental learning that happens when they're in the office full time. And we've got a lot of content on our website. If you go to Talent Solutions and you go to the Talent Talk tab, we've got a lot of content, blogs and webinars that you can reference. One of those is on optimal contact time in the office for early talent, which you can take a look at as well. I just thought I'd end on I've talked about Gen Z, and finally, I've sort of been trying to move us through a journey of thinking about having early talent in our businesses, how we get that into our business, key considerations in terms of what we need to think about. And now we've sort of moved into bringing them into our organisations. I've talked about Gen Z. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. You can hit pause and have a read of the various dimensions of this. The point I want to make here is that this is the first time in organisations that we've had up to 5 generations in one organisation. Depending on the size of your business will determine how many generations you have, but chances are you'll have 3 or 4 at least. We have an ageing population, as I said earlier. Our builders and boomers are retiring later, they're working for longer. And so we do have these interesting generational differences within our organisations. And McCrindle in Australia, as a research company, they've coined this phrase, which is generational intelligence, GQ. So we had IQ, we had EQ, your emotional intelligence, we've had CQ, your cultural intelligence, and now we have GQ, your generational intelligence. And the point here is that there are differences between the generations. Each generation grows up in a different context in terms of the technology, the economic, social, environmental context that they experience as they are, as they're growing up, and they bring this into the workforce with them. And so I saw a quote the other day from a Gen X manager saying that managing Gen Zs was like trying to communicate with someone from a different country and culture. So the point is that there are differences, and it's important to recognise them and think how you're dealing with them. So you're really important with this next generation of young people coming into your organisations to think about how you're equipping your managers to manage young people effectively. And interestingly, we have a full development suite for organisations to help with getting their graduates from start to successfully hitting their straps in the business, fulfilling their potential, realising their potential. And increasingly, part of that work that we've delivered has been about supporting managers in terms of how to manage Gen Z. And I just want to give one example. This was really provocative for me, and that example is about praise. So this is from a McCrindle, referencing McCrindle again, and respondents were asked how important it was for them to receive praise at least a few times a week, So you can quickly see Gen Z 54%. Now I'm Gen X, and I would definitely fall into the 72% of Gen Xers who would not feel the need for praise a few times a week. In fact, I would probably feel it was a bit disingenuous if someone was trying to pat me on the back multiple times a week. I've grown up in a work context where you get praised for the big things, the big achievements, and so to praise small things, for me personally, would feel a bit condescending. But over half of Gen Zs in the study indicated it was not just preferable, but important to receive feedback at least a few times a week. So you think about that for a moment. You've got Gen X and Boomer managers, and they're not holding back praise for sort of some sort of tough love. They just don't have the reflexes to offer it with frequency. And then you've got Gen Zs, and Gen Ys are not far off the pace, who are therefore feeling like they're out to sea in terms of whether they're doing a good job or not. And if you consider our education system and how education has evolved to being far more about facilitated, supportive learning environments, students receive participation certificates and rewards and recognition at a much higher pace than Gen X or Boomer generations were exposed to on the whole. I'm broadly stereotyping. But you carry that into the workforce, and it's interesting to reflect on how you respond to the desire for reward and recognition. So just one little example of the differences and how that can play out in terms of helping your managers to engage really effectively with your Gen Z talent. So just to round everything up, we've talked about investing in early talent. We've talked about the fact that that's mission critical. do consider the future skill needs that you have, the skill gaps you need to future-proof your organisation, and whether you've right-fitted the sort of work that could be undertaken by a graduate, which is not only cost-effective, but ensures that you're utilising the full capability of the people in your teams. Do use the data to ensure that you're cost-effective and targeted. You can come and talk to us at Talent Solutions to get access to that data to help you direct your spend and your focus to ensure that you're getting the best return on that investment. And my last point, do think about whether you're equipping your managers, your teams with the right skills to manage this new generation of talent coming into your business too. So lots of opportunity for reflection, I hope.
Absolutely. It's just fantastic, Seren. Really, really interesting. A lot of insight. I mean, you rounded it back to where I was going to start, which is with your praise chart there. It just shows, these different generations, and Gen Zers, for example, very different. They're so different. But it's not all negative, is it? I mean, from a Gen X or Boomers perspective, I mean, if you take a Gen Zer on, as you say, they know how to work the technology, which some of us don't. And what are some of the other advantages of Gen Zers? I mean, I suppose the other one that you mentioned, but I suppose this is true of, early talent is, it's not a word we like to use, but they're oftentimes cheaper because they're coming in at entry level.
Oh, absolutely. And that was that point I made in terms of, thinking about the work that your organisation is undertaking and role by role, and think about the work that could be undertaken by a graduate who is you're spot on, that you could be paying a graduate level salary to, because that work is absolutely appropriate for someone with that skill level to undertake. And you're really using your experienced hires who are costing you more, you're investing more in that experience to really be focused on work that requires that level of experience. There's a lot of administrative staff that falls into a lot of roles, and some of that's unavoidable, but challenging yourself to think about whether you've got the balance right, and whether there's opportunities for you to be bringing in young people that actually is more cost effective than not. I think we often think that investing in early talent is a cost. It can actually be a saving too.
Yes, and the brilliance of it is actually, and I have examples of this in my workplace where, that early talent started in an entry-level role, but proved themselves, gained experience, and they've become the managers on, considerably higher salaries as they've grown with the role. Do you think
that's right?
Is one of the things, what's your sense of an experience of the marketplace right now? Is it that, because I think, there'd be a stereotype that'd say, yeah, but, our experience of Gen Zers is they have unrealistic expectations. They think they're going to come in at, the 80-something grand that they'd get paid in Australia or even more, and they're going to be CEO within a week and this, that, and the other thing. Or are they actually at the moment, I think you're sort of making the point, actually pretty realistic about where the market is at?
Yeah, look, there's a mix. Humans, we're complex things, and yes, there's a real mixture. I think what's important is that you're communicating, you're clear on what you need as an organisation, you're clear on the capabilities you require, and then you're managing those expectations. We talked about the importance of sharing what the career plan is. So you're managing those expectations and providing the mentorship and guidance to help those young people coming into your organisation to get a reality check if that's what's needed. But in my experience with graduates we've had come into our team, they're so hungry to learn, and with the right support, they can be firing very quickly. I think it does come back to thinking about just spending the time thinking about what's the right sort of work to be giving young people to help them in that training and development. And that doesn't need to be all the sort of mundane stuff that no one else wants to do, providing them with stretch and helping them to understand where they could be, what their strengths are, where their potential can be realised. But I do think that does come down to, again, individual managers and organisations managing expectations, and also ensuring, as we just talked about with that example of praise, ensuring that your managers are equipped with an understanding of what they're getting and how to best respond to the expectations of Gen Zs.
Mm. I thought it was a really interesting point around, or set of points really around, with great candidates. The way you've got to approach that, you've got to move with pace, and you've got to dial up your engagement. I mean, another way to put that is actually it's a two-way interview process, isn't it?
Really
They're
is.
assessing you at every point, and you've got to, and that's, I suppose, always been true, but possibly it's even more true today.
Yeah.
Including through to the letter of acceptance. I thought it was fascinating that location is number two. So what early talent, your Gen Z is at a level that what they want to be in the city, or what are they
Yeah, and
looking for?
location, distance from home, when they then think about, okay, travel time into an office environment, that becomes an important consideration. And that's why I was saying, a lot of our conversation this morning has been about Gen Zs, about young talent, but actually a lot of this stuff applies to your experienced hires as well. So
Yes.
I think the sorts of things that we've discussed you can be doing to increase the chance of you getting great talent out of the market for your early talent absolutely applies to the way that you can ideally are operating to get the best talent in terms of experienced hires as well.
I think the intern point's a really interesting one. And I'm sure, we think about that brain drain, and that constant lure of Aussie and those high salaries. Is one of the things you're saying that, look, actually internships is a good way to combat that, because you're making the early talent more sticky?
Yep, absolutely. Waiting until, so there are a group of students who wait until their final year to look for jobs, but increasingly students are thinking about their future career earlier in their studies, and creating internship opportunities not only provide you with a chance to evaluate that individual and their fit. Often a classic recruitment process, you might interview a candidate, maybe have a video interview process, you might have a psychometric test, and then it'll come down to a 45-minute or 60-minute interview, and you'll make a decision about whether they're going to be a graduate in your organisation based on all those evidence points. When you have an intern coming into your organisation, they might be with you for 10 weeks. Well, that's a fantastic opportunity to evaluate their fit over a much longer period of time, and vice versa for that individual to say, oh, I thought I wanted to be an auditor, and now that I've come in and had an opportunity to experience, maybe yes I do, or no I don't. I thought I wanted to be in marketing, yes I do, or no I don't. So it's a really great opportunity for that individual as well as for yourself to decide on whether the fit's right. And what I would say is, if you are investing in interns, don't lose that relationship. So the reason you want to be doing internships is to essentially get one step ahead, to then not have to go out for graduates. Yes. So you would defer entry offer that candidate that you've deemed as a great fit for your organisation, and maintain a relationship with them till they finish their studies. And then they're not going off considering anyone else. They already know where they're going to go. The pressure's off them. That's a win for them. And it's a win for you, because you know that you've got this pipeline of talent coming into your business the following year when they finish their studies. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Are you, is what you're seeing, what I'm, just albeit at a very anecdotal level, seeing that internship numbers are really down? Look, they're still doing them at your bigger firms and technology businesses and so on, whereas they might have had, I'm making these numbers up, but 100, this year they might have 28.
That's right.
Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, that's right. That internship numbers have been reducing. And while it can be a tempting short-term lever to pull to reduce cost, long-term, that then severely impacts that pipeline of talent you've engaged with. And then it costs you more to go out to the market to find those graduates because you're competing with everyone else. So I would caution against just, pulling that lever because of the fact that the long-term costs are much higher than the short-term savings and reducing your numbers now. And we know from all of this research, students are considering, as I say, job opportunities much earlier in their studies. So internships are a great way of getting your brand out there and getting cut through in what is a very busy graduate market in terms of competition for the graduate talent. It really gives you the opportunity to build a relationship early. So I'm a huge fan of internships, and we do a lot of work with clients
Well,
right starting their
yeah,
internship program. Yeah.
I mean, I still look back on my internships at Kensington Swan. It was then. Now it's Denton's, a law firm. Great fondness, lots of and so that's but I think one of the things you were saying is that I hadn't really thought of, but it is we can and it's obviously something they could talk to you about, Sarah, businesses is, even if you're doing these internships, but you're finding parts of them are impractical, there's a bunch of ways to reconceive these. I hadn't really thought about the winter option, or virtual, or
Mm.
and are they something that even smaller firms can do? I mean, when I say firms, is the wrong businesses can do?
Oh,
They,
absolutely, absolutely. Yes, we've since COVID, we actually started doing virtual internships before COVID, but since COVID, we've had a lot of success with firms who, as I say, the summer internship model just doesn't work for them, but they're keen to engage with young people and identify good talent early. So a virtual internship program is a fantastic way of doing that. It's very scalable. So if you may have only been able to accommodate 5 interns in your business, doing a virtual internship, you can very easily have 50, and the costs are very low to the barriers to entry are low. So absolutely, I'd encourage organisations to be creative when they're thinking about how to tackle that.
Finally, a bit for us, but I was interested in the generative AI or ChatGPT sort of points around the letters. I'm sure that's absolutely right. Can you tell the difference between a ChatGPT letter and a one written by the person, or do you reckon?
It's getting tougher.
Yeah.
Certainly a year ago, it was very easy because students were just copying and pasting and they all started to look very similar. Also, if you have questions in your application form, why do you want to work here? We were seeing a lot of the same answer pumping out, which had clearly just been copy and pasted. But increasingly, students are getting better at what prompts they're putting in to refine that answer. And they're starting to cotton onto the fact that actually probably someone else has just copied and pasted this, so I should make some tweaks and make it my own. And so they're becoming more sophisticated in their use of it. So that's why I say it's really important that organisations think about where they sit in terms of their comfort around applicants using generative AI for their application and cover letters. And there may be people watching who are absolutely fine with that. They think it's great. If you're using it, fantastic. And your expectation in terms of how well it's written might be even higher, because you're thinking to yourself, I'm expecting my candidates to be using AI. I therefore am going to be really brutal with how I review the work that, the applications that are sent through to me. My expectation is going to be a lot higher in terms of quality control. So it's just important to be thinking about that now, not at
Do you
the end
think
of the interview
I
process.
could live with AI, letters and so on, but with a caveat? I mean, I wonder, does it affect the accuracy? I mean, I wonder if they just, they're they're getting baloney out. And, I want to know that if they tell me something in their letter, that's absolutely the reality from them. That they did spend X amount of years. I mean, that's a basic example, but, but it is even more in the flavor of it when they say that there are this sort of a personality,
That's right.
That's what's being churned out of them. We actually want to know that that's, and I think that's, yeah, I worry that's the issue there.
Yeah, it is an issue, and that's why your process. So there's lots of things you can do. We work with a lot of organisations now redesigning their selection process to ensure that it's still robust, and things like personalising. So we have a lot of video interview processes we run for organisations, personalising the questions so that you can't ask ChatGPT what you personally value. That's not really going to help you. So there's lots of ways that you can change your process to accommodate candidates using AI. And yeah, you're spot on. The other important thing is then your interview process. You need to be training up your managers to be really asking good questions to evaluate whether that candidate sitting in front of you is who they think you are. And again, that applies for your experienced hire recruitment as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it puts a lot more pressure on the subsequent, the interview and so on. But
it does, 100%. Yep, absolutely.
Seren, thank you so much. Great to have you and Talent Solutions along. I think there's a lot of insight, and I think there'll be a lot of engagement with this. So we deeply appreciate your time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Simon. Appreciate the opportunity.